Stay still. Don't move.
Listen to him, old man. Don't make things worse.
I was just waiting for the bus.
Cops tased a 93-year-old vet at a bus stop. 6 minutes later, black SUVs flooded the block. Sometimes justice moves slowly through courts, but when viral video shows injustice against those who sacrificed everything for freedom, even the most powerful institutions must answer to a nation's awakened conscience. Officer Kevin Baker fired 50,000 volts into 93-year-old Arthur Peterson at exactly 2:17 p.m. while the World War II veteran waited for his bus to cancer treatment. By 2:23 p.m., black SUVs with federal plates surrounded the block, and Baker's career was ending in real time. Arthur Peterson had survived Normandy Beach, the Battle of the Bulge, and 60 years of nightmares only to be tased by Kevin Baker, a 26-year-old rookie with 18 months on the force who'd never faced anything more dangerous than traffic stops, until his split-second decision made him America's most hated cop. What began as one rookie's catastrophic misjudgment would trigger federal intervention, exposing systematic police failures, proving that viral videos don't just ruin careers. They change laws, topple administrations, and remind nations what happens when those sworn to protect forget who deserves reverence. Downtown Cleveland, Ohio, Tuesday afternoon, October 2024. The bus stop on Superior Avenue sat across from Cleveland Clinic, where Arthur Peterson received chemotherapy every Tuesday and Thursday, same routine for 6 months. Punctuality honed by military service despite age making walking difficult. The neighborhood mixed urban renewal with urban decay. New condos rose beside vacant lots, while gentrification created tensions. Newcomer complaints about suspicious activity had increased police patrols despite crime statistics not justifying enhanced presence. Officer Baker patrolled this beat alone, violating department policy, but reflecting staffing shortages budget cuts had created. Body cameras were mandatory but frequently malfunctioned when incidents occurred. Technical Sergeant Arthur Peterson landed at Omaha Beach on D-Day as radio operator. His communications coordination was essential for establishing Beachhead, Bronze Star, Purple Heart, Presidential Unit citation. Post-war NASA career as electronics engineer. Now surviving on veteran benefits and Social Security while cancer treatment strained Medicare coverage. Modest man whose extraordinary service was known only to family. Kevin Baker joined Cleveland Police after community college criminal justice program emphasizing law enforcement authority over community service. Motivation was steady paycheck and early retirement, not calling to serve. Training deficiencies included minimal de-escalation, no mental health crisis, intervention, virtually no instruction about respecting elderly citizens. Personal insecurities about authority compensated through aggressive enforcement of minor infractions. Arthur's Tuesday routine was disrupted by bus delays that medical appointments couldn't accommodate. Baker's patrol was influenced by supervisor criticism about productivity arrest numbers deemed insufficient despite community policing philosophy, emphasizing relationships over statistics. The confrontation would test whether respect for military service could overcome reflexive authority assertion. Federal intervention would determine whether departments corrupted by impunity culture could survive scrutiny that systematic problems couldn't hide. "What are you doing here?" Baker's tone was aggressive from the start. "Waiting for the 47 bus to Cleveland Clinic for my cancer treatment," Arthur replied courteously, despite confusion about why police were questioning legal activity. "Let me see some ID. Of course, officer. Arthur's movements were slow age, and chemotherapy affected coordination, despite military bearing maintaining respect for authority. Move faster. What's in the bag? Medical papers for my 3 p.m. appointment. I'm a veteran receiving treatment through VA partnership with Cleveland Clinic. Veteran of what you look too old to have served anywhere recently? The dismissal stunned Arthur. World War II son, Normandy Beach Battle of the Bulge, Bronze Star, Purple Heart. Right. Let me see those medical papers. Arthur complied completely when cooperation with authority remained ingrained from military training. Civilian life never required abandoning. Bystanders gathered when police interaction with elderly man attracted attention. Sarah Williams, nursing student, recognized medical emergency when elderly patient's distress was obvious despite officers' aggressive behavior. This old man is clearly waiting for bus to medical appointment. Why is the cop treating him like a criminal? Sarah's live stream commentary would prove crucial, real-time documentation eliminating official narrative control. Bus arrival delayed 15 minutes due to mechanical problems disrupted Arthur's treatment schedule. I need to catch this bus or miss my chemo session. Doctor says treatment delays could affect recovery. Baker dismissed medical necessity as excuse. Medical appointments aren't my problem. My problem is suspicious behavior requiring investigation. Radio communication with dispatch was avoided. Baker's supervisor would have questioned extended interaction with cooperative elderly bus passenger. Crowd included other veterans whose military recognition of Arthur's bearing created protective atmosphere civilian authority was violating through disrespect. Sir, step away from bus stop for search. That suspicious activity requires, Baker demanded without legal justification, no reasonable suspicion established. Officer, I haven't done anything suspicious. I'm waiting for public transportation to medical appointment. Don't argue with me. Move away or face arrest for obstruction. Arthur's confusion was evident. Military service taught cooperation with authority, but civilian experience hadn't prepared him for police harassment legal activity, somehow triggered. Son, I fought in World War II so you could serve your community. Don't dishonor that sacrifice by treating veterans like criminals. Moral authority in Arthur's voice should have penetrated training inadequacy, but Baker reached for handcuffs when authority challenge was perceived. You're under arrest for disorderly conduct and failure to comply. Sarah's live stream captured every word. This is insane. Cop is arresting World War II veteran for waiting for bus to cancer treatment. Someone call FBI. This is civil rights violation. Hands up. Stop reaching. Baker panicked when Arthur's slow compliance was misinterpreted as threat despite obvious physical limitations. I'm just raising my hands like you asked. Please don't hurt me. Bezes that taser discharged 50,000 volts into 93-year-old Arthur Peterson at 2:17 p.m. Split-second panic overcame training that de-escalation should have provided. Arthur collapsed instantly. Electrical shock, overwhelmed nervous system age, made vulnerable medical condition, risked cardiac arrest. Oh my God, he tased the old man. Sarah's live stream captured community outrage. Multiple recording devices ensured evidence couldn't be disputed. Sir, are you all right? Baker's panic intensified when excessive force created medical emergency training should have prevented. Arthur was unconscious. Taser shock induced cardiac arrhythmia, requiring paramedic intervention emergency care that delay might make ineffective. You just killed a World War II veteran. Crowd anger built when community witnessed police brutality against elderly hero whose service earned protection, not assault. EMS arrived within 4 minutes, providing life-saving intervention. Cardiac stability restored through professional medical care, police violence made necessary. Sarah's live stream shared 50,000 times within first hour. Shocking footage of police tasing elderly veteran triggered national outrage. Social media amplified exponentially. Justice for Arthur, trending nationwide within 2 hours. Video has 2.3 million views and climbing. Federal attention was immediate. Veteran advocacy groups contacted congressional representatives whose military affairs committees had oversight responsibility for veteran protection. Civilian law enforcement violated. Congressional intervention was swift. House Veterans Affairs Committee notified about assault against decorated war hero whose service record included personal commendation from General Eisenhower for D-Day heroism. Committee chair, demanding Justice Department investigation into civil rights violation requiring federal prosecution. Pentagon involvement escalated situation. Arthur's military records revealed classified operations during World War II that national security implications created. Arthur Peterson was radio operator for Operation Overlord. His communications coordination was essential for D-Day success. This is assault against American hero. FBI field office received orders for immediate investigation. Federal civil rights violation documented through video evidence prosecution couldn't avoid. Federal agents en route. Investigation will determine criminal charges against officer and department whose training failures enabled this assault. Media explosion created national story when video became symbol of everything wrong with American law enforcement reform. Advocates demanded addressing. Arthur's resilience during hospitalization demonstrated character. Military service forged when adversity couldn't diminish dignity. Honorable conduct established. Doctor says, "I'll recover fully despite heart irregularities the shock caused. More concerned about Officer Baker than myself. That boy needs help, not hatred." Baker's breakdown was complete when reality of assaulting war hero penetrated training inadequacy through consequences career destruction couldn't address. "I didn't know he was veteran. Thought he was just obstinate old man refusing to comply. Never meant to hurt someone who served our country." Community mobilization around Arthur created support network when neighbors were inspired by veterans' grace under pressure despite injury, criminal assault inflicted. Sarah's advocacy evolved from bystander documentation to national spokesperson for police accountability, when viral video positioned her as credible witness reform movement could utilize. Federal investigation revealed systematic problems within Cleveland Police Department. Arthur's case identified pattern rather than isolated incident. Accountability could address through individual discipline. 17 excessive force complaints against Cleveland PD in past year. Pattern targeting elderly minorities, vulnerable populations that federal intervention appears justified addressing. Political pressure built when congressional hearings scheduled to examine veteran protection, local law enforcement failed, providing despite federal benefits respect should have accompanied. Criminal charges were prepared. Federal prosecutors determined civil rights violation occurred through excessive force. State prosecution couldn't adequately address. FBI recommending federal criminal charges against Officer Baker for deprivation of rights under color of law. Department shakeup was imminent when city officials recognized federal intervention couldn't be avoided through internal investigation. Credibility made impossible to maintain. 2:23 p.m., black SUVs materialized from 4 directions simultaneously when FBI rapid response was triggered through Pentagon liaison, whose authority exceeded local law enforcement jurisdiction. FBI. This is federal crime scene. All Cleveland police stand down immediately. Special Agent Maria Rodriguez's command carried authority. Local police chief couldn't override when veteran assault triggered federal civil rights investigation. Baker's panic was complete when federal agents surrounded him despite union representatives' attempts to invoke qualified immunity. Video evidence made impossible to sustain. Officer Kevin Baker, you are under federal investigation for deprivation of rights under color of law assault, under federal jurisdiction and civil rights violations. Do not leave the scene. I was just doing my job. I didn't know he was war hero. Your job doesn't include tasing 93-year-old veterans waiting for buses to cancer treatment. Evidence collection began immediately. Federal crime scene technicians deployed to preserve documentation. Local police contamination couldn't compromise. Secure all recording devices, witness statements, medical evidence. This case goes directly to federal grand jury for indictment seeking maximum penalties. Department lockdown was ordered. Systematic investigation required examining training records, personnel files, complaint histories that pattern of abuse might have documented. No Cleveland police officer leaves premises until interviewed. This investigation includes department culture training, inadequacy, supervisory failure that enabled assault against decorated veteran. Congressional response was immediate. House Veterans Affairs Committee monitored situation through military liaisons, whose oversight responsibility required protecting veterans from civilian law enforcement abuse. Emergency hearing scheduled next week. Arthur Peterson's assault will be examined as systemic failure, requiring federal intervention through legislation. Pentagon involvement escalated when Arthur's classified military service was reviewed through security clearance. World War II operations required maintaining. Arthur Peterson holds Presidential Unit Citation signed by Harry Truman for D-Day communications invasion success required. This is assault against living piece of American military history. Media explosion reached international attention when allied nations whose freedom was secured through Arthur's service expressed outrage about treatment gratitude should have prevented. Political careers began ending when elected officials who supported police militarization were forced to explain why veteran protection wasn't prioritized through policy accountability should have included. Union response was desperate damage control when police union couldn't defend tasing elderly veteran despite qualified immunity. Video evidence made impossible to invoke. Arthur's public statement from hospital bed was broadcast nationally when moral authority of assaulted veteran carried weight political spin couldn't overcome. I don't want Officer Baker destroyed. I want him educated. Want all police officers educated about respecting people they're sworn to protect, especially veterans who earn that respect through service. The grace Arthur demonstrated while connected to heart monitor shamed nation whose veterans were being assaulted by police officers who'd never served anything but their own authority. Baker's breakdown during federal interrogation was leaked to media when complete confession couldn't be hidden through legal representation. Guilt made impossible. I thought he was just difficult old man. Never considered he might be war hero who deserved respect. Federal determination was announced when Justice Department concluded civil rights prosecution was mandatory, despite local pressure to treat incident as training failure. The United States versus Officer Kevin Baker opened federal court when civil rights prosecution was pursued despite union attempts to negotiate plea agreement accountability couldn't avoid. Defendant charged with deprivation of rights under color of law assault under federal jurisdiction and civil rights violations carrying maximum penalty of 10 years imprisonment. Baker's defense argued training inadequacy when individual responsibility was diluted through institutional failure that education, rather than punishment, should address. Defendant received inadequate training in de-escalation elderly interaction veteran recognition. Cleveland Police Department's curriculum failures enabled this tragic incident. Federal prosecutor emphasized individual choice when training couldn't excuse assault against elderly veteran whose cooperation was complete. No training inadequacy justifies tasing 93-year-old World War II veteran waiting for bus to cancer treatment. Defendant's actions were criminal, regardless of department failures. Arthur's testimony was devastating when moral authority was combined with dignity. Forgiveness couldn't eliminate justice requirement. Arthur Peterson Veteran Protection Act, introduced with bipartisan support when assault created political consensus, police reform required addressing through federal legislation. This bill mandates enhanced police training for interactions with elderly citizens, veterans, disabled Americans, and other vulnerable populations whose protection law enforcement should prioritize. Key provisions included federal funding for de-escalation training, veteran recognition education, civilian oversight that accountability could maintain through community involvement. Expert testimony during congressional hearings featured Arthur alongside other veterans who'd experienced police harassment despite service that respect should have earned. International attention embarrassed America when allied nations whose freedom Arthur helped secure expressed concern about veteran treatment gratitude should have prevented. Department of Justice announced pattern and practice investigation when Cleveland Police Department required federal oversight reform couldn't achieve through local effort. Guilty verdict on all federal charges against Officer Baker delivered when jury deliberation lasted 90 minutes. Despite defense arguments, training inadequacy couldn't excuse criminal responsibility. Defendant sentenced to 4 years federal imprisonment plus 3 years supervised probation with community service at veteran facilities. Civil settlement of $2.3 million awarded to Arthur when municipal liability couldn't be disputed despite insurance coverage demonstrating taxpayer responsibility for police misconduct. Settlement funds will establish Arthur Peterson Foundation for Police Veteran Relations Training, preventing future incidents through education. Police union resistance emerged nationwide when Arthur Peterson Act requirements mandated through federal legislation superseded local law enforcement autonomy. Union leaders claiming federal overreach violates state sovereignty despite civil rights violations justifying federal intervention. Training implementation required retraining 750,000 American police officers when veteran recognition and elderly interaction protocols were added to certification requirements. Political backlash from conservative officials was mitigated by veteran organization support. Arthur's case mobilized through shared outrage. Arthur Peterson Day, established as annual recognition, when Congress designated October 15th as National Day honoring elderly veterans whose service deserved civilian protection. Police Academy curriculum nationwide revised when Arthur's case demonstrated need for military history education that appreciation, rather than ignorance, should provide. Community partnerships between police departments and veteran organizations established when mutual understanding could prevent future incidents. 2 years later, zero recorded incidents of police excessive force against elderly veterans. When training reform achieved prevention, Arthur's assault motivated. Arthur Peterson Foundation has trained 12,000 police officers in veteran recognition and respectful interaction protocols. Baker's rehabilitation through prison veteran services documented when redemption rather than destruction could be achieved through education. Arthur Peterson lived to see comprehensive police reform. His assault triggered through viral video exposure national conscience couldn't ignore. Cleveland Police Department became model for veteran-friendly law enforcement when federal oversight produced cultural change. Officer Baker's conviction established precedent. Excessive force against elderly veterans would be prosecuted to maximum extent. Arthur Peterson Act became foundation for broader police accountability legislation when veteran protection opened pathway for civilian oversight democracy requires. Arthur Peterson's assault triggered immediate federal intervention when viral video documentation eliminated local damage control through evidence national outrage couldn't suppress. Baker's federal conviction established legal precedent that excessive force against elderly veterans would be prosecuted as civil rights violation regardless of training inadequacy defenses. Cleveland Police Department's federal oversight through consent decree produced comprehensive reform when community partnership replaced enforcement authority as primary mission. Arthur Peterson Act's bipartisan passage mandated nationwide police training reform when veteran protection requirements couldn't be ignored despite law enforcement resistance. Peterson Protocol, adopted by 847 police departments nationwide when veteran recognition training proved effective for preventing excessive force incidents against elderly citizens. Federal funding for police reform reached $2.8 billion annually when Arthur's case demonstrated return on investment through incident prevention training could achieve more effectively than prosecution. Veteran police partnerships established in 127 cities when mutual understanding could bridge cultural divide ignorance rather than malice created through educational gaps. Legal precedent established through Baker's prosecution cited in 234 subsequent cases when federal civil rights protection for vulnerable populations was strengthened through judicial recognition. International influence affected allied nations' police training when Arthur's case demonstrated importance of veteran recognition. Military cooperation required maintaining. Arthur's evolution from assault victim to national advocate demonstrated that dignity under adversity could inspire systemic change when moral authority provided platform political power couldn't ignore. His Arthur Peterson Foundation created permanent legacy when police-veteran relations training could prevent future incidents through education that respect should motivate. Baker's rehabilitation through prison veteran services proved redemption was possible when accountability included education rather than punishment alone. Sarah Williams' advocacy career launched through viral documentation when citizen journalism could provide accountability, official oversight failed maintaining. Sometimes justice moves slowly through courts and committees, but when a nation's conscience is awakened by viral video of injustice against those who sacrificed everything for freedom, even the most powerful institutions must answer to the moral authority of truth witnessed by millions. Dignity in the face of oppression can inspire transformation that individual courage makes possible when community supports those brave enough to stand up for what's right, proving that democracy requires eternal vigilance and that sometimes the most profound victories come from the most vulnerable victims whose dignity shines brightest when darkness threatens to extinguish the light of justice. Their remarkable story demonstrated that systematic change was possible when individual injustice triggered collective action, inspiring millions to believe accountability could be achieved when citizens refused to accept authority abuse as inevitable, proving that sometimes viral moments create lasting transformation that individual courage makes possible through community support that justice demands.